Let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Alan C.
Thank you. You're an early group, and so what I want to ask you to do is to close your eyes. We're gonna go through a story. Now, don't fall asleep because I know it's early, but close your eyes and imagine with me. You're in a hotel room. Your company has just spent a lot of money flying you to a conference. They paid for your entry into the conference. There'll be meals expenses and time away from the office. And so right now you're up there in your room getting ready for that opening kickoff mixer, you know, the networking event. And so you've got your business cards, they're in your pocket, ready to go. You've got your elevator speech. It's locked and loaded in your mind. You've read about current local events. You've read the bios of the speakers. In general, you're ready for some light, engaging, networking conversations. Okay, so now you're going down into the elevator. You're walking across the lobby. The doors opening up into the networking event. There are people everywhere. Everyone's sitting, talking, and it seemed to be engaging very well. Okay, now, somebody's coming up to you. They're extending their hand. Hi, I'm Alan. Thanks for shaking my hand. Hey, while you're standing here, could you get out your cell phone and go over and like our Facebook page? You know, while you're at it, could you go over to our website and check us out and see what we do? And be sure to read our blogs. And of course, if you like what you read, we'd love to hear your feedback and say all kinds of good things about it. Hey, you know, while you're at it, why don't you also follow us on Twitter and connect with me on LinkedIn? Okay, you can open your eyes. Now, I don't know about you, but in a face-to-face type of environment, in a conference, I've never been accosted by somebody in quite that way. Has anyone here? Maybe you have. Never. And yet, when it comes to social media, that seems to be the most common thing people and businesses do. You have no idea, really, who it is you're engaging with, and you're immediately jumping on them without having built any trust, any credibility, asking them to do these things, which is just, you know, totally out of line. When it comes to social media, both large companies and small companies seem to go wrong in what I would call 6 key areas. But in general, where I see companies and individuals go wrong are around strategy, technology, processes, time, money, and training. Social media is much like this Rubik's Cube. And if you don't have these 6 key areas lined up, the puzzle isn't going to fit together. If you're wondering why your social media marketing efforts are falling short, it's no doubt because one, if not all 6 of these areas haven't been addressed. And so what I want to leave you with today is just a very short conversation around the training. Now, as I look across the room, I'm not seeing too many digital natives. Does anyone want to? Does anyone know what digital native stands for? Digital natives in general are the millennials. They were born after 1980. And the false assumption that we make is that just because they were born in the digital age, that somehow magically they understand exactly what to do with social media. Now, they may have no fear at going onto their cell phone, onto their tablet, onto their PC, and setting up a Facebook page. You know, that's one thing. But for many of you, both as an individual business owner, or for your company, those social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, oftentimes become the very voice and face of your company. Let me say it again, the very voice and face of your company. Now, just because they know how to set up a Facebook page, are you willing to take that risk to say, oh, I think I'm just going to turn this over to an intern? Or, you know, my 16-year-old nephew, he does Facebook. I'll just, he can go over there and do that. I love my 16-year-old nephew. He's a great student, athlete, very responsible. He has a license to drive his car. I'd let him drive my car, but I would not let him drive my Facebook page or my Twitter page or my LinkedIn profile, because that's my business. That's my livelihood. And turning it over to somebody who doesn't have that experience or training is a huge mistake. So for those of us who are hopefully digital immigrants, they're digital immigrants. Okay, so for us baby boomers, I'll admit I was born in 1959, so I'm kind of at the tail end of the boomers, but in general, digital immigrants are people who grew up in the analog age. Okay, yes, CB radios were great when I was growing up. I pounded out term papers on a electric typewriter, but as time evolved, I took that step into LinkedIn, into Twitter, into Facebook. If there's a social platform out there, I'm on it, and I want to be on it because I know that Google indexes those pages really well, and if you produce great content, engaging content, build an audience, that it's entirely possible to create a lead generation way through social media. But it does take strategy, technology, processes, time, money, and training. To think that you can't do it without training is a huge mistake. So imagine with me again. 2 people enter a room. Okay, the first person's entering. Here I am. I'm here. Look at me. Hey, could you go to my website? Like me on Facebook? Follow me on Twitter? Okay. Second person's entering. There you are. Kurt, it's great to see you. Tell me, what's the biggest thing I should know this year about the tax changes going on? Now, tell me, which person would you be most attracted to? Which person would you most want to think, hey, I'd like to meet that person. I'd like to engage with that person. From a training perspective, yes, there's the technical knowledge of how Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn works when you're on your cell phone versus when you're on a tablet versus when you're on a PC. And those interfaces are changing constantly. Just setting them up can be challenging. But the technical process part of the strategy is sometimes the least of your worries. Really what you want to worry about is on the training side are the people that we're putting in charge of this, are the people that are doing this, are the people that are we getting training on, okay, we know what Facebook is, we know what Twitter is, we know what LinkedIn is, but have we really trained our people on how to interact and to engage and to build audience, to build trust, to build rapport, to build credibility? Because if you're just out there spraying and praying, term used in marketing for just mass advertising, spray and pray and hope that something sticks on the wall, you're going to be very, very disappointed in your results, because that is not the way people want to engage on social media. Think of social media much like you would one-to-one marketing. Yes, there's a huge audience out there. I have over 80,000 people following me on Twitter. Is it possible for me to engage with every single one of them? No, not really. But if somebody replies me or sends me a direct message in which it's clear they're not trying to spray and pray me, and I look at their profile and can see, hey, they really are the CEO of a company, and this is a valid contact, then that is an opportunity to go into a direct one-to-one communication and a one-to-one talk. So social media can be very, very powerful, but if you're not paying attention to strategy, technology, processes, time, money, and resources, and time, money, and training, then you're making a really big mistake. So this morning, the takeaway is training. Think about it. Do I feel myself? Have I been trained? Has my company been trained? Training doesn't necessarily mean setting through a classroom of training, although it could. If nothing else, you're going to have to put in the time to do a lot of reading, watching other people who are doing it well, and training. But don't take it lightly. You've raised some excellent questions. And it's funny how the human psyche works. I mean, Forbes ranks me as one of the most followed CMOs on Twitter. I'm ranked number 6. And I will get direct messages for people who want to help me with my social media marketing. And I look at their Twitter profile, and they have 200 people following them. And I'm like, okay, I'm not getting it. I don't really see how I'm a prospect of yours. I could see how you would want to jump onto my bandwagon, but I'm not sure why I want to jump onto yours. And that's because they jump in and they're going, here I am. You should do business with me, rather than, oh, there you are. What might I learn from you so that maybe I could eventually, see, this is the thing. This is the thing that's really a mistake about social media too, is that within social media, there's this feeling that you can microwave the customer relationship. That somehow, just because you follow somebody or they followed you, that all of a sudden we're best friends and I should totally trust you. That's not the way life works, is it? It totally takes time. A lot of time in some cases, especially if you're involved in business to business that involves very long sales cycles, solution selling, in which the deals are very big. It takes a lot of time to build trust, to be that trusted advisor. Because in building that trust, what you need to do is build rapport, build credibility, and then I look at it as a mathematical statement. Trust equals rapport times credibility divided by risk. Now what does that mean? You want to have a boatload of rapport. You want to have a boatload of credibility, and you want to show them that if you deal with me, I'm reducing your risk. If that bottom number is really low, those two top numbers are really high, that's going to equal a huge trust number. We do business with people we know, like, and trust, especially in the B2B world. So, that is absolutely key. I create these, I'll call them marketing sound bites, in which I do a video, and I don't want it to last, kind of like a Vine video. I don't want it to last any more than 10 to 12 seconds. And within this Vine video, or this video, I have a dog. I secured a clip of a dog, and it's kind of walking along the fence, and then the dog takes a leap on the fence. And my tagline is that viral is not a strategy. If you're depending on cute cats and dogs to make your marketing viral, viral is not a strategy. You might hope it goes viral, but hope is not a strategy. So, viral and hope are not a strategy, and you are spot on that thinking that a cute cat or a cute dog is going to make your marketing material go viral, and then all of a sudden your business will be world famous. Wrong move.
So I'm not being mean.
No. Let me give just another short analogy that's actually related to a very true statement, is that in 1977, after graduating from high school, I actually received an appointment to the Naval Academy. I grew up in Iowa, and I swimming, I sank like a rock. But before I could play football, I had to pass the swimming test. And so myself and a whole bunch of huge players, we were in the remedial swimming class, and we did have to learn how to swim and to do that before we could to go on. And so my answer to that is that you just have to jump in. There's no way to learn how to swim without getting wet. At some point you can watch videos, you can go to webinars, you can read the books, but until you actually jump in, you're not going to develop that comfort level. Now, let me tell you how social media can work, though. That it's a great way to work. Is that I look at it as a maturity model. So you first get into social media, and all you do is just listen. Just be a lurker. Sit back, watch, look, see how people are doing things on LinkedIn. See how people are doing things on Twitter. See how people might be doing things on Facebook. Just look, observe, listen. And then you become comfortable with what you're learning and seeing. Then all of a sudden you become a curator. Okay, now I'm curating other people's content and sending that on to my audience because I feel like it's very spot on to what I do and what my audience does, and that they'd really appreciate me curating, kind of being that focal point of curation, of bringing in other people's content and then sending it out. The final part of the maturity model is, okay, now I've listened, I've been a curator, now I feel comfortable becoming my own thought leader. I have something to say. I can produce blogs. I can produce content that's based on my own point of view that sets me up as somebody who understands what's going on in our industry, and then you start developing your own content and then distributing that through the social channels. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is to be good. I talked about becoming a digital immigrant. In 2002, when LinkedIn first started, I was the 74,000th person to join LinkedIn. I was one of the first 100,000. I was in the beta group. So I got into LinkedIn before most people even could think about what is LinkedIn. I got into Twitter early, so I've been lucky enough to have been an early adopter. So for me, 2002, this is 2015, in the words of Malcolm Gladwell, who in his book, The Outliers, basically said it takes about 10,000 hours for somebody to become an expert. I mean, if you look at Michael Jordan or great symphony players, if you look at doctors and people, when you put it all together, most of those people have put in 10,000 hours of study before they become an expert. I've put in my 10,000 hours, so in essence, it's going to just take time and patience to just want to be in there and learn it. But I promise you, the comfort will come. So here's how I would do it. Let me tell you what consultants talk about best practices. Okay. What are the best practices here? For me, my definition of best practices is if what you're doing is delivering the results you want, then that's a best practice. That's your best practice. And you know what? You should keep doing that. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try other things, but that means that works. So now what I'm going to tell you is my best practice. Okay? This works for me because, to your point, is that everything I do, I'm trying to drive volume to my website. In some way, the more volume I get to my website, the more calls I get, the more calls that result in business. So whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, at the end of the game, I'm building trust, I'm building credibility, I'm building rapport, I'm engaging with people with the idea of driving volume to my website. Now I think in terms of three things. I want to be found, find, and engage. Being found is the SEO thing. That's just waiting for somebody to have a need or a desire, and they find you because they do a search. But I grew up in sales. I was an NCR sales guy, and so I'm more about also finding, which means I want to find my target market, create the interest, use the art of persuasion, and try and get the thing going. So I lean towards more, not so much being found, waiting for the need to be there. I'm going to create the itch. I want to go out and find the people. And then, of course, once you're found, engagement is being able to have a conversation without being boorish. Great to see you, Kurt. Thanks so much for inviting me here. Tell me, what's new in the tax world that I should know? If I show an interest in you first and bring out what your pain points might be without ever talking about the fact that I want to get business from you first, that's going to build the relationship. Now, my focus is not so much business to consumer. I'm a business to business person. And if you're in the business to business world, there is a power triangle. And that power triangle is blog, and that blog's probably connected to your website. Blog, LinkedIn, Twitter. Blog, LinkedIn, Twitter is the power triangle for pushing traffic to your website where you can build trust and credibility. Now, I know, Facebook has 1 billion people. Everyone talks about Facebook. Let me tell you, from my perspective, I have tens, hundreds of people connected to me on Facebook. The people connected to me on Facebook are my nieces, my nephews, my aunts, my uncles, people I went to high school with, people I went to college with, people I'm related to. If you're not related to me by blood, or we weren't in a fraternity together, you're not going to connect to me on Facebook. I don't try and do business on Facebook. I can post one of my blogs on Facebook, and it'll be total crickets. I can post my blog on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I can get hundreds, thousands of reactions. On Facebook, I can do that, and my uncles and cousins are like, I knew you when you were 12. I don't care about that. But I can post a picture of my wife and I, or myself and my grandkids, and I can get 50 likes overnight. So it's a matter of understanding your audience. Just because there's a billion people on Facebook, I'm not telling you not to be on Facebook. Facebook indexes well in the SEO perspective of being found. It indexes well with Google. You kind of have to be there, if nothing else, just to protect your name, to protect your corporate entity. But where you spend your time and energy, if you're business to business, blog, creating content, creating really cool, good content, LinkedIn, Twitter. You won't go wrong if you think of that power triangle.
That was very good.